Hi, my name is Neal McGowan. I'm one of the priests here at St. John the Divine, and I am joined today with none other than the Zachary Berry. Zachary, tell us very briefly about yourself.
Hi, so my name's Zachary Berry, and I'm a student, a seminarian at Duke Divinity School, and doing a summer internship here at St. John the Divine for a couple of months, just as I prepare in my training for the priesthood, hopefully one day. So happy to be here.
Awesome. Well, Zachary and I have been talking together and thinking about this very important question. Why does the church matter? Why go to church? Why not sleep in and just become a brunchapalian instead of an Episcopalian and enjoy the morning? Because as we know, the church has not always been perfect, has not always behaved well. So why does it matter? What's the point? And we've kind of been wondering this question, and we hope that in our conversation, you'll be wondering with us. So, Zachary, why church? Why does it matter?
So, to sum up sort of, I think, the gist of what I've been thinking about, the church matters because when God sets out to save the world, he calls a community. And I think that's at the heart of who God is and how he operates. And I think it might be helpful also for us to sort of define the church. Mm-hmm. And to do that, I kind of look to this passage in 1 Peter chapter 2 and verse 9, where he says, "But you are a chosen race, a royal priesthood, a holy nation, God's own people, in order that you may proclaim the mighty acts of him who called you out of darkness into his marvelous light." And Peter's actually quoting Exodus there. He's talking about the fact that God has called you as a people, not as individuals. And even when he called Abraham, he sort of sets out with this. He calls one person, but he promises to make him a nation. And so Israel, the descendants of Abraham, become God's chosen people for God's mission in the world.
So God, from the beginning of Scripture, the beginning of our story, is calling others together, to form together, to be together. I immediately think, well, that's great. But say I have some great friends that I hang out with. I'm a part of a very competitive bowling league. Why do I need the church? How is that? I'm a part of a people, so why do I need the church? How is it different than just a social group?
Sure. I mean, that's a great question because, there are plenty of social groups out there, plenty of ways to find community and companionship. There's plenty of ways to do advocacy and charity in the world. But what justifies the church's existence? That's a really great question. I think ultimately it's the fact that the church offers something transcendent. We have the gospel. That's our thing. That makes us not just a social group, and we're not called together by common interest, really. We're not called together by our similarities with each other, shared backgrounds. Mm-hmm. We're called together by the God who has called us out of darkness into his marvelous light.
It's a sign of a healthy church is that not everyone is exactly the same demographic, right? If everyone is of the same social strata, there's something a little bit unhealthy about that because it's not just we're together because we like each other. Like you said, we're together because of the gospel, because God has called us together, because God has called us to become his people. Yeah. And that's different than just a social organization.
Sure.
At the heart of that, too, is this idea of the sacraments. That one of the things that the church does, one of the things that makes us a people is our celebration of the sacraments, that we baptize. And baptism is this communal thing that we do together. It's there's a call and response with the congregation. You have godparents, and godparents exist to remind us that we're being in a new family, a new group of people. And of course, the main thing that the church regularly does is the Eucharist, and it's a meal that we share together. The communal aspect of it is in its very definition of communion. We're not just having communion with God, we're having communion with each other. And I think that's when you talked about 1 Peter, it mentions this aspect of the royal priesthood, something that we're doing together. Yeah. So for you who are watching, the question why church. Maybe you are a frequent flyer on the church, or maybe you just, are just curious and are just watching this. Maybe you've been burned by the church. We would want to say to you that not try and convince you this is why in 10 arguments you should go to church and tithe while you're at it. Although that would be great. What we want you to hear is that being a Christian, following Jesus, is becoming a part of a people. It's something we do together. You can't do it alone. This is God's plan from Abraham all the way through. And Zachary, you gave me a great little story. We were talking earlier about what this looked like for you personally at a particular moment in your life.
Yeah, so you really can't do it alone, and it's not God's intention for you to do it alone, and that's why he calls a community. But I remember when I was in college specifically, and it was first time was faced with some crises of faith, and was really wondering, I say I believe these things, and I believe them, but for the first time I was really faced with the question of why? What justification do I have for believing in really some of the really radical claims that Christianity makes, like resurrection and virgin birth and miracles? And I was really struggling and questioning, and I found it almost like I could fall back on every week. I didn't stop going to church. I kept going throughout my college experience. And each week I found it extremely helpful when we would stand up, and it wasn't just me. It was me and everyone else in the building. We could stand up, and together we would say, we believe in one God, the Father, the Almighty, maker of heaven and earth. And it was like, for at least that time, it was sort of a reprieve from all of that searching and doubt. It didn't go away. I ended up having to resolve it, and thinking and wrestling with it. But the community lifted me up in that moment because it was a communal act of saying, we believe this is the faith. It's not all on me. It's the faith of the church. And that kind of cradled me through that difficult time in my life.
So the hope for us, for you, is that you will experience the church as I love that image of a cradle. The trust fall, where you can fall back and you can trust that you may not have it together. And individually, probably the people in the church, they don't have it together either, but together we can get it together to carry one another.
Sure.
And rely on each other. And we do this because this is how God works. He works through others, gathering us together as a people. So the hope is that you would experience the church as that when you go. And if you haven't, the prayer is that one day you will be able to find a church community that can carry you and be there for you. So thanks so much. We're going to keep talking for the rest of the summer about why church. We're so glad that you are with us, and we'll see you again soon.